let's get right to Marc Lauder, who's joining us by phone right now. Hey, Marc, great to have you with us, man.
It's great to hear you out in Iowa, John. I look forward to getting out there myself this weekend.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to see you out here, Marc, when you're with us, and we're going to try to have you on again live as we travel around in our Job Creators Network bus. It's wrapped. Socialism takes, capitalism creates, and so we're excited about that. We also we just told the Bernie campaign we're going to be following them around in this bus, and they're like, "Hey, cool slogan." It's like, okay, thanks, Bernie. I mean, like they don't care. I mean, they know they're going to win, and so they're having fun. We got a lot to talk about, Marc. Can we start with impeachment? Where this thing is going? Are we finally going to put this ruse to bed tomorrow night? That's the hope. What do you think?
Well, I think it's looking more and more likely. I mean, we know the outcome. We know the president's going to be exonerated. In fact, now it is looking like, and I just looked up and saw, one of the liberal cable networks actually discussing, is there going to be a bipartisan acquittal of the president? And I think that's looking like it's going to be more and more likely that just like in the House of Representatives, you will have Democrats and Republicans coming together to say no, and no Republicans voting yes. And so the only question is going to be on when does that occur, whether it happens tomorrow, which there seems to be some rumblings that it might be tomorrow, or whether it'll be next week. But we know it's not a question of if he will be acquitted, it's just a question of when.
What about calling more witnesses? I mean, we're all just getting sick of this whole thing. I know you're keeping tabs on this. Do Republicans have 51 votes to end this thing?
Well, that's the big question right now, and I've seen some reporting out there that suggests that they do, but obviously, I'll trust Senator McConnell. Nobody counts votes better in the Senate than Senator McConnell, and we'll see how that plays out tomorrow. But even then, I mean, the thing we've got to understand is that it doesn't matter who they call to testify or nobody. Nothing is going to change the fundamental facts of this case, which is you can read the call. There was no quid pro quo. The Ukrainians admit that they felt no pressure. The aid was released, and there were no investigations announced. I mean, this whole thing just keeps falling apart, and everything else is just a circus sideshow distraction by Democrats who can't take losing, even though they should get we should be getting used to it.
I think the thing of it is, Marc, all of us are sick of this thing. We don't need any more witnesses. I mean, the whole John Bolton thing is so stupid because when the president tweeted that video out yesterday that said basically game over, I mean, here you have a video, Elaine Parker, of John Bolton right after the phone call with Zelensky, basically saying it was a perfect phone call, right? So
yeah. I mean, it's case closed right then and there. But I mean, the Democrats can't. They're just trying to delay this. They're trying to keep their liberal base fired up. They know they're not going to impeach the president. They know that he is not going to be removed, and the rest of this is just a distraction and just basically trying to play for the cameras of MSNBC and CNN.
Exactly.
Marc, it's Elaine Parker with the Job Creators Network. Thanks for coming on today.
So let me ask you something, Marc. I want to get to this just released a little bit earlier. The Trump administration now approving Medicare block grants. I know this has been something that a lot of Trump supporters have wanted at the state level, giving states more of an opportunity to decide what to do with the money in a block grant basis. But other states would be hurt by that. They would get less money. And Virginia, for instance, I know with the new Democratic power structure that we have here, the liberals that took over caucus of the corn, etc., they're not going to be interested in that. But what does that do? Explain the policy to us and how that is better. If states do that, why are they better off? Explain that.
Well, yeah, John. I mean, it's very simple, and luckily I worked in Indiana when Vice President Pence was governor. I worked for the prior Republican governor now Vice President Pence, and we understood what many states understand is that if you take this as a block grant or just a giant pile of money, then that makes you able to innovate and do different things. We were actually able to cover more people in Indiana but also by putting common sense restrictions in that you could actually have copays where the recipients, based on their income, so it slides up and down. The poorer you are, the lower your copay or no copay would be. But the more money you made, maybe you would put a little bit of your own money in, having some skin in the game, so to speak, and we were able to take that money and stretch it farther through basic innovation. And it worked in Indiana. It's working in other states. Kentucky was doing it as well. Now we're giving that opportunity to states to say, if you want to cover more people, if you want to lower costs and actually get better outcomes from the health side, not just covering people, but making them actually healthier, encouraging routine checkups and things like that, you now have the freedom to do it through this program rather than just the federal government model, which is paying everything for everyone and not really trying to improve the outcomes of the health of the folks who are involved.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. I'm sitting in today for the Fighting Joe Morrissey show. Senator Joe Morrissey, doing Senate business in Virginia, will be here at his time again, 11 a.m. to 12 o'clock again tomorrow. I'm with my co-host for the week, Elaine Parker, Job Creators Network. We're with Marc Lotter. He's the Director of Strategic Communications, Trump 2020 campaign. He was previously a special assistant to the president and press secretary to Vice President Pence. And he's been with the vice president for some time when he was in Indiana as governor there and also congressman. So, Marc Lotter, the thing with the block grant, though, it's up to each individual state, right? This isn't a mandate. So each state has the jurisdiction or the power to decide what is best for them. Is that the way it works?
Yes, absolutely. Each state would develop their own program, then they would file an application with Health and Human Services Department to apply for this block grant. They'll look at the restrictions. They'll make sure that their program meets the broad federal guidelines, which are still in there. But there are broad guidelines, and then if they believe they can determine that they can cover more people, provide better outcomes, and do it at less price, then they can approve that waiver. And it's a long process. It doesn't just happen overnight, but states that want to seek this flexibility can then do so.
Is this going to be part of the president's re-election campaign? I mean, we went through the healthcare debacle in 2018. As you know, Marc, I'm not a fan of Paul Ryan. I thought they never had a replace with a repeal. I think they lied. You don't have to comment on that. I can't stand the guy, and I'm glad he's back in Wisconsin or wherever he is. I mean, that destroyed us in 2018, that one issue. Are we going to have a platform in 2020 that the president is going to roll out that is going to allay some of the fears that people have with increasing coverage for health, drugs, etc.? What is the president's vision going forward for this going into 2020?
Well, absolutely. And the president's been very clear that he wants to make sure that as many people as possible can be covered, but he also wants to do it at the most efficient cost. And what we have seen, just through the actions that the president has been able to take, for the first time in 50 years, the average price of drugs has fallen. And yet there is still more that we can do. If we could get Congress to join with the president, we can do even more. And when it comes to things like Obamacare and things like that, I mean, what we are also talking about is allowing small businesses to pool their resources together in associations to be able to get the big buying power of large corporations. I know back in Indiana, where I came from, the Chamber of Commerce used to offer a health policy called Chamber Care, which was a Blue Cross Blue Shield, but you got all of these small accounting firms and law firms and florists and folks getting together. Being chamber members, they were able to get the major buying power of a corporation, lower the price for their employees, which was a good thing. Obamacare did away with it. We've tried to bring it back, and the court threw it out. So these are the kinds of common sense things that the president is going to be talking about, of things that we can do to lower cost, expand access, and let small businesses, which are really thriving right now, be able to offer health insurance, affordable health insurance, to their employees, which will be very beneficial as they're competing for talent right now because we have such a tight labor market.
Hey, Marc, it's Elaine Parker. At the Job Creators Network, we represent small business and really what I refer to as Main Street small business. Healthcare has been one of the major issues for our members, and as you probably know, more than 30% of small business owners since 2013 have had to drop health coverage for their employees just because of rising premiums. So we're big advocates of the association health plans that you're talking about, and I know they're tied up in the courts right now. But one of the things we've worked on this last year, is a program called Healthcare for You, and that's a framework for healthcare reform. And what we've done is we conducted market research. We refer to this as research of, by, and for the people. So we started with the American people. We got the inputs of 25,000 American voters to find out what they wanted in a healthcare plan. And what they want is to repair and restore that doctor-patient relationship, and they want to get bureaucrats out of the decision-making process. And more than anything, they want choice and competition to bring those costs down. The program we're pushing is at healthcareforyou.com. It's got 7 elements, and it's about expanding choice, returning that regulatory authority back to the states, and allowing people to own their own health insurance and take it from job to job and in and out of the labor market. So we're excited about the platform and love for you to take a look at it.
No, absolutely. And the one thing I will add, but I will also very much caution you against, is obviously when it comes to specific policy positions, obviously we don't do that here at the campaign. That's something that is controlled down the street here at the federal government. So, we've got a lot of great people working as Secretary Azar, the head of Medicare, Medicaid Services, Seema Verma. They're working on all of this stuff, and we let the White House lead those policy discussions because he is the President of the United States. But I can tell you, as we've said, he is focused on making sure we can lower costs, cover more people, and allow small businesses to offer that benefit to their employees.
Well, look, that's there's got to be a health plan in 2020 that's got to be part of their platform. So I get what you're saying, Mark. The policy's got to come from the White House, but it's got to be part of the campaign. And certainly, when I get to Charlotte, and hopefully I'm going to be on the platform committee, we're going to push hard to put a piece in the platform that addresses it. We'll see how that goes. And of course, they don't have to follow that, but that's part of the fun of doing it. Also, we're with Marc Lotter among many of his other titles. He's also now the Trump 2020 surrogate director. Now, I'm a surrogate, Mark. That means you're my boss.
Well, I don't know if anybody should qualify for that. They can qualify for that title.
Mark's my boss. I got my boss on the phone, Elaine. You think he's happy with his interview?
Mark, I think you should give him a raise.
I know. Why are you going to raise, Mark?
I'll double what he's currently making right now.
I love double. That's like the Bernie plan. That's why we're here, following the Bernie bus. 2 times 0 is nothing. That's right. Marc Lotter doing the Bernie Sanders pay plan. Hey, Mark, I just got to tell you this one thing on the campaign trail. I don't know if you've seen it. Elaine showed it to me today. This video where there was a town hall or something with Senator Elizabeth Warren, and this factory worker gentleman goes up to her and says, "Hey, I just worked 2 jobs, 2 shifts for a 5-year period and weekends to get overtime to send my daughter to college. She just graduated. You want college for free for everybody. Does that mean I get a refund? Do I get my money back?" And she's like, "No, of course not." And the guy's like, "Well, then why am I being screwed when I worked my tail off to just get her through college, and you're basically giving it to everybody else for free who even prepared work the weekends like I did?" I mean, and she had no response to that, Elaine, right? I mean, that was a great video clip. Mark, therein lies the problem. Once these crackpot proposals get out of the primaries, I mean, how do these things play in a national campaign?
Well, it just goes to show you that they don't have the interests of hardworking Americans first and foremost in their plans. They're more about catering and offering free stuff. I mean, I've often described it, and you and I have talked about it, John. I mean, watching their debates is a free-for-all because everything is free for all. But what they don't tell you is that if you did the right thing, if you saved money, if you scrimped and you saved, and you put your children through college or you pay off your bills, they don't have anything in there for you, and it just shows you how disingenuous their whole platform is. And for her to basically boldly say, that to that hardworking American just shows you how out of touch they are.
Well, we're going to be following their campaigns this week after the rally today, and we're going to bring all the action back and have it raw and have it live and on the ground. Elaine Park and I, Curtis Ellis, will be joining us a little bit later on. But we want to talk to Democratic voters, their surrogates, some of the candidates, find out what exactly their plan is as we follow this right through to the Democratic caucus on Tuesday. And I am on the record as saying Bernie Sanders is going to win Iowa. Mark, he is going to win Nevada. He is going to win New Hampshire. And he's going to go into Milwaukee ahead. And I predict he's going to be the nominee. So it's going to be Trump-Sanders. A lot of people, though, think that Hillary Clinton might parachute in. Right? You never know. It'll
be very interesting to see a self-proclaimed socialist and communist sympathizer leading the Democrat Party against a president who's delivered the strongest economy in our recent history, and it'll be a very stark contrast.
I don't get into people's personal choices, not my style, but when he got married to Jane, they took their honeymoon in Moscow. Like, who does that? Like, who says, hey, this is a great romantic place to go. Let's go to the let's go to the Soviet Union. Let's go to the USSR, because let's go to the USSR on our honeymoon and, like, do what? Visit, what? What are they going to visit? The gulags? I mean, like, come on, Mark. You take your honeymoon to the Soviet Union? Like, who would do that?
It wasn't on my destination list, but
Hey, honey, I got the best honeymoon plan ever. We're going to look. It's even better than going to Havana. We're going to the Soviet Union in the wintertime because, hey, you know what? They've got the socialism model. We got to go see it on our romantic honeymoon. That's Bernie Sanders and Jane Sanders go to Moscow on their honeymoon. I still can't get over that one. Not exactly the most romantic place to go, Mark Lauder. All right, man. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
By the way,
good to be with you.